Hey, this is Ben Solomon, and welcome to this episode of the Techno Leadership Show. In this episode, we are going to be talking about how to prepare for a senior technical role interview. So, in the previous episode, we spoke about the junior technical interviews, and a lot of those interviews are for entry-level positions where people bring in transferable skills from other areas to get them into technical roles. Having some skills and some education. But when we go into senior roles, it's not just the education that matters. It is the experience that counts towards everything. Because you can have all the certifications, all the education that you want, but let me tell you, going into a workplace is completely different to having theoretical knowledge that you get from either going to university and doing a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. You can do, the best possible degrees in software development, in electronics engineering, in electrical engineering, in infrastructure, networks, system administration, all of that stuff. Theoretically fantastic. But if you want to get into a senior role, you need to have put in the hard yards, really worked in the field, done break fixes, done all sorts of things to know how to approach problem solving, how to approach designing a system, how to architect things. All of those things don't come from theoretical learning. You can get all the certifications you want, the CCNAs, the MCSEs, the whatever new found thing that keeps coming up for all these things, certifications, and you can get accreditations from like IEEEs and all the other organizations out there. But none of that is going to help you when you are going for a senior technical role. You have to have your technical chops spot on, and that comes from working in the environment and investing in yourself to gain deep skills in each of those areas. If you're coming from an infrastructure engineer sort of background in IT, for example, that'll be Windows Server, all aspects of it, like Active Directory, group policy, going deeper into DNS, DHCP, all in-depth stuff. And then networking. In most cases, you might be specialized in something like Cisco-based networking or HP networking, Dell networking. I was fortunate personally to work in environments that had a mix of all these various vendors, which gave me a good broad spectrum knowledge of networking, but also meant I knew the in-depth in each of those areas, how to work with equipment and infrastructure from each of those vendors quite well. So when I went for interviews in the senior roles, I could say I knew how to do it in each of those vendor specific equipment. Similarly, you might have opportunities like that. If not, the other thing that you can do is buying used equipment, X-Lease equipment. I've bought X-Lease switches, I've bought X-Lease servers and all that sort of thing and played around. I built my own PC and then put Hyper-V to then have virtual machine environments. I've done all that during my technical stage of life and got in-depth knowledge. I could break things because they weren't in the production environment, and then based on breaking and fixing and designing well, I could then implement in production environments really good, robust systems. So I am taking it that you've invested in yourself and you've not just learned and got certifications, but you actually know what to do in each of those scenarios. And it's you've got to have a feedback sort of loop that you go through where you learn, you test, you implement, and then you get feedback, and then it goes through that feedback loop again to strengthen your knowledge, strengthen the wisdom that you get from being in the field and working. Once you've done that, once you've been in junior roles and mid-level roles for a period of time, you will get an understanding of where you really want to go. So it might be, if you're in IT, it could be down the track of going infrastructure way. In that could be even networking. You could specialize in it. You could go into system administration as a specialty. You could go in hardware engineering as a specialty. If you're a programmer, then it's divided based on languages, divided based on front-end development, back-end development, and full-stack development, UX development, all of these aspects there. So in a period of time working in the industry, you'll get a feel for where you want to go, and also knowing your long-term goals of 5-10 year vision of where you want to go with your career helps you figure out what that next step is going to look like and what it should be for you specifically. And once you've done that, get an understanding of where you want to go, doing an analysis, a SWOT analysis of sorts, to figure out what your strengths are, weaknesses are, and what opportunities are there in your current environment, and what threats are there to progression where you want to go in your career. All of these put together, and skills, and knowing your natural inclinations by doing psychometric testing like MBTI, Colby A-index, and others that I've mentioned, gives you a baseline to understand your strengths, your weaknesses, and the value that you bring into any organization. And then looking at the path that you want to go, you can choose the right kind of role that you want to apply for, and then write your resume, cover letters, and everything prepared for those sort of roles, bringing in stories from your experience. People get a good feel for you and get an understanding of what kind of a person you are, and if you fit into their culture based on the stories that you can tell of your experiences, how you've dealt with complexities, how you dealt with big issues that have come up, how you took charge of a certain situation. Going into senior technical role involves a certain level of leadership as well, because it's showing that you are someone who takes initiative, takes the lead, and leads probably a team of other engineers to help resolve a big issue or implement a big project. All of these things are part and parcel of that. And in junior and mid-level roles, if you want to get into senior level roles, you need to start working with your manager to take initiative and to get in your hands dirty in big projects. If there's a big issue and your manager is busy, take load off them. Show them that you've got initiative, so that even when it comes down to the fact that you're applying for a role outside the company because there's no other opportunities within the company, they'd be more than happy to give you recommendations saying, this person actually takes initiative, they've taken so much load off me, and that's a fantastic recommendation to get from a manager of yours. So once you've done all of these things and you have a good feel for your next step, and you've got your resume and everything ready, you've applied for the role, and congratulations, you've actually been asked to come in for an interview. At this stage, out of 80, 100, 200 people that have applied for the role in bigger cities especially, you've been probably the last 10, or in some cases they might go up to 15 people that they want to interview, depending on the kind of role and how many positions they're trying to fill. But in most cases, they try to whittle it down to under 10, so it's easy for them to interview and make a good value judgment on who would be the best possible fit for their environment. So hats off to you. Congratulations that you've got this opportunity. So you need to, again, when you go into the interview, be able to reiterate your experience, your expertise, the kind of personality that you have, all with the help of stories of what you've done over the last few years in your junior and mid-level roles. And one of the best tools that I found to prepare for interviews and make it feel natural and make yourself feel confident is using visualization. It's not any magical thing. It's something that I got from the field of sports psychology and what they do to prepare themselves for competition. And something that I've used successfully. I've helped people that I've coached, team members that I've coached to help go up in their career, use successfully as well. So basically what I do, usually a couple of days before the interview, usually you get an email or a phone call from the HR people at the company. They might tell you the names of the people who would be part of the panel and if there's any other expectations that they have, so you have time to prepare for it. So you would be looking at all the things that you've done over the last few years and infuse them with the right stories and right characteristics that you want to present, and be truthful in this, because the thing is, if you misrepresent yourself, at the end of the day you're shooting yourself in the foot. You want to put your best foot forward with your strengths, uniquely yours. And then once you get a feel for who's part of the interview panel and you've done a little bit of research on them, go sit in your room quietly, away from everyone, close your eyes, and feel like you are sitting with the people who are going to be part of the panel. And in some cases, when you don't get names or any details of who is going to be interviewing you, just, imagine 2 or 3 people, depending on most cases, it's 2 or 3 people in interview panels. In very rare cases, you have larger panels. And, close your eyes. Imagine that you're sitting in front of 3 people. You're being asked deep technical questions by a very senior technical person. And then you might have a technical manager there who's asking you questions around your behavioral aspects and your characteristic aspects. All of these things, practice. And doing this makes the job of going to the interview and actually doing the interview a lot easier. Because by the time you go to the interview and you're actually in front of the interview panel, you've practiced it so many times in your head. And it feels natural. It feels like you've done this before. The deja vu effect. It feels like, you've done this before, you've done this 100 times before. That gives you a lot less stress. And when you sit in front of the interview panel, you can focus on your presentation, showing them how you're going to be a valuable asset to them in the company. And once that's done, you also need to have some really good quality questions to ask them so that you show that you care about adding value. You want to understand how value is produced in the company and how you can contribute and be someone who stands on their own, but at the same time works well with the team. A book that, helps with the preparation for the interview and actually doing the interview is a book that I love from the sales side of things. It's a book by Brian Tracy called Psychology of Selling, and it's an absolute fantastic book on sales. And part of your role in a senior role is going to be selling people on ideas, whether it's your technical manager, whether it's a higher level architect, or even in some cases you might have the opportunity to sell to executive leaders, which would be fantastic if you are looking at going into management roles in the future, of ideas, of projects, of financing certain projects, all of these things. So understanding sales and to an extent marketing psychology helps you position these projects, these requests in a manner that supports the business. Because at the end of the day, whatever project you're doing for the benefit of the business. But most people in business do not understand the technology. No matter how much you try to tell them, unless they've come from a technical background, which is very tiny percentage of people, they will not understand you explaining the details. What they need to know is the benefit of any project that you are proposing to do. So always go from the benefit standpoint, not from the feature standpoint when you're putting in proposals, business cases, all of these things, and project proposals and project plans, funding proposals, all of those things. And similarly, when you're writing a cover letter, it's a marketing document. You're marketing the fact that you are the right person for the role. And when you go in for the interview, you are selling the fact that you are the perfect person for that role, for that company, for that environment, for that culture. So learning a bit of sales and marketing is always going to be beneficial for you as you go up the ladder, whether it's in senior technical roles, going into management roles, going into then C-level, director level roles. It is very, very important. These are skills that enhance your communication, enhance the way you deal with people, the way you deal with colleagues changes because you start looking at it from their perspective. You start stepping into their shoes and are trying to understand what they're feeling, what they're going through, what they are thinking, and how you can support them in that and be collaboratively working towards a big vision. Cool. So that's my little spiel for, learning a bit of sales and a bit of marketing, because most people who are in the engineering and technology fields have a tendency to resist sales and marketing. We tend to see it as a soft, fluffy skill sort of thing, but sales and marketing is the driver of everything in a business. If you don't have sales and if you don't have marketing to support the sales, you don't have a business. Because if those people who are in sales can't sell the service, whatever your business sells or does, there's no need for IT, there's no need for anyone else to be there, for the fulfillment and operations people to be there. So everything in a business starts with marketing and sales. Marketing attracts the right people, selling obviously converts the right people to customers, and then people in operational roles get the opportunity to serve those people and get results that's been promised. Okay, that's my little rant about business side of things and marketing and sales. So getting back into the interviews for these roles, asking good quality questions. Ask questions around the fact that, what would a typical day look like from their perspective, because you want to know what the senior technical resources and the technical managers, engineering managers think you should be doing on a day-to-day basis. Gives you a perspective of, okay, these are the expectations, and then if you feel like that's not what you want to be doing on a day-to-day basis, you have the opportunity to say, nah, this is not the right role for me. But if that is, and that gives you also the perspective to go, yep, this is exactly what I want to be doing on a day-to-day basis, and take the role if it's offered to you. Then ask them things around, how large the team is, if there are other specialists, if they expect you to mainly be focusing on a couple of aspects, but also have some general knowledge in other platforms and aspects of the role. Ask them the question, even though it's in the job ad. It's always good to clarify to make sure everyone's on the same page. And then ask them questions around growth opportunities. Are there, professional learning and development opportunities for growth within the company? What would, growth within this company look like? What next roles are available within the company? And then ask them questions around what initiatives and projects they have for the next few months. It gives you an idea of how you can add value. They might have certain projects that you might have done at other companies before, where you can come and say, yep, I've done this in another company, and I'd be able to come in and hit the ground running and support you in this project implementation. So again, it's a value add opportunity there. And then finally, one of the big questions that I've used for the last 7 or so years in interviews that I've gone into is what's known as the Dan Sullivan question. It's a question formulated by an entrepreneurial coach by the name Dan Sullivan. He's actually written a book about it. It's about 50 or 70 pages, I believe. But the simplified form of it is a question that helps you determine what success looks like from the other person's perspective. And it's something that I use in my one-to-ones when I do one-to-ones with my team members and with people that I do recruitment of as well when I was in my management and leadership roles. So the Dan Sullivan question goes like this when you ask your interview panel. So you'd ask them the question, let's say that I'm given the role and we're having this discussion 12 months from now. From your perspective, what should have happened between now and then for you to consider that I've been successful in the role? So it's basically giving them the opportunity to spell out their expectations of when you come in, what'll happen, how it'll happen, what processes you're expected to follow, and all of those sort of things. So you can get a gauge for if it's the right fit for you. And if, and in some cases, you might get an idea of, are you expected to like get in and pretty much you don't get much training, you don't get much opportunity to sort of get an understanding of the business, and you have to hit the ground running because let's say they've lost 2 senior resources in the last 3 months. Again, it gives you the opportunity to reevaluate things and go, okay, do I want to be in that pressure cooker situation? And it's up to you. It's your career. You have the opportunity to think about these sort of things and choose. As much as the company that's recruiting you is, looking for the best possible person for the role, you are also qualifying them to see if they are the right people for you to work with over the next X number of years. So you need to ask these questions and make sure that you gain clarity, you gain the confidence to be able to commit to this company. So yeah, that's basically the process. And as I've said before, we have good days, we have bad days, we have good interviews, bad interviews. Always take feedback and utilize that to help yourself grow. The other thing that I also do is, no matter if I'm in my ideal job or not, I'm always applying for the next level roles, even when I'm not fully ready, because I've learned that you're never fully ready. You're fairly ready, you have the skills and all that sort of thing, but until you get there, you're not gonna be there, and you need to start applying for those roles, get a feel for what kind of questions are being asked in the next step up, and always be sharpening yourself, your skills of interviewing, your skills of keeping your cover letter written well, and to keep your resume updated as well if you're looking to continue to grow in the career. Don't get complacent, don't get stuck. At the end of the day, it's your career, it's your life, so you've got to keep pushing up to the highest level you want to get to as quickly as possible. Like no one can tell you that it should take 10 years to get to position X. If you are committed, dedicated, you could do it in 2 or 4 years or 5 years, who knows? Who's anyone else to judge you and tell you what you're capable of? So I hope that's helped you. There's, a lot of action steps here that you can take. You can go back and listen and do all the exercises that I've said, the psychometric tests I've said, because they all play a significant part. Like if you've done it once or twice, you can keep all those results, and for the next X number of years, you can utilize that again and again to continue working on your strengths and finding ways to mitigate your weaknesses, to improve the value that you bring to businesses, and in one way or another, you are paid in proportion to the value that you bring to the business. So you need to understand the kind of value that you bring to the business as well when it comes to negotiating salaries and all that sort of thing. So hopefully that helps you prepare for the interviews, and I wish you all the best with the future interviews, and go out there and ace them, and I wish you all the best in your career growth as well. And if you liked the content of this video, please hit the subscribe button and go to technoleadership.org and connect with us. If there's any questions you'd like to ask, any other topics that you'd like to see me cover, please let me know by leaving comments or sending me a message through the contact form on technoleadership.org. Thank you. Have a fantastic day and see you soon. Bye.